Avnish, it is wonderful to have you for this podcast. Our focus today would be on profit versus purpose. For the benefit of our audience, I have with me my very close friend Avnish Sabarwal. He is a very seasoned professional with the corporate world for 33 years of experience through multiple corporations. But Avnish started his career with the armed forces in India, which is why you get to see a very different flavor in Avnish compared to some of the other friends I have. And I'm hoping, Avnish, some of those will come out when we go through this exploration of profit versus purpose today.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, Shubhadip. And yeah, I hope some of those definitely I'll be sharing as we go ahead. So yeah, looking forward to this chat.
Terrific. No, thanks again for joining us. Let's start with the basic premise of profit versus purpose, right? Because we all interpret those two terms in different ways. I would like to know, when you hear profit versus purpose, and especially keeping in mind your unique career journey from Indian Armed Forces to Corporation 1 to Corporation 2 to where you are today, what comes to your mind? How do you see it?
Yeah, I think I have been thinking about this for some time, and if I look back to my life when I joined the army, and I spent almost a decade with the Indian Armed Forces, and after that I was ADC to the governor of Madhya Pradesh as well. So it's a different kind of life, but when you are in the army, you have this motto, what we call service before self, right? And that is something which you live by. It is not just a motto. Everybody in the armed forces live by that motto. So, and that is only purpose, right? We are there. Sometimes people think or ask the question that what makes a soldier give his life for the country, right? It's obviously not for the few thousand rupees or few lakh rupees he gets. That I think you can get from other places as well. So it is the purpose, and the purpose is obviously which includes things like your country, but also your peers and your men who you are commanding. So the scope of being in the army and the training which I got naturally tilted me towards the purpose side of the scale. And my entire first 10 years of my life had nothing to do with profit. In fact, when I left the army, I had zero bank balance because I had to go and do my education as well. But the first 10 years were mostly out purpose, and I'm actually very happy that I got that opportunity, and that definitely has shaped my personality. Having said that, when I joined my first corporate job after leaving the army, I saw a very different world. There was nothing bad in it, but it was obviously a world which was highly tilted towards shareholder value, right? And it was tilted towards making profits, and I could understand, being a strategist, I could understand that profit is like the fuel which makes the car go ahead, right? And if you're not making profit, you will not grow. If you're not going to grow, you will go. Either you will get busted or you will get acquired. So with all the great things, even if you want to do, it is the profit which actually, if it is channeled in the right way, makes the big social impact as well. So yes, there are two different ways of looking at it, but if done right, I don't think that they are naturally conflicting with each other. But yes, armed forces, completely purpose. Corporate, you have to survive there, you have to show profits quarter by quarter and still try to do the right thing, what the corporation thinks. So yeah, that's how I would probably like to start the discussion.
It's wonderful because it's almost a swing that happened for you, right? I mean, I can very well imagine. I've never served in the armed forces, but I can imagine that it is purpose driven, right? Almost with zero definition or requirement of profit.
That's
to
correct.
a point where you have been thrown into this corporate world, where we like to talk about purpose and profit and all that, but let's get it straight on. I mean, it is about profit. It is about shareholder value. You mentioned a very interesting term, Avnish. I heard it for the first time: compassionate capitalism. So if I now were to ask you, as you look back at your journey in the corporate world now, I'm sure you have had to take decisions that are profit centric, yet you are a man who has grown up with purpose as a compass. Tell our audience a little bit about your thinking around this compassionate capitalism.
Yeah, I think what I mean by that is that while I have been in the corporate world now for more than 25 years, and I was thinking hard on this question, whether I have taken decisions which I regret, or which my heart didn't allow me to do.
Yeah.
And actually, I haven't really, I haven't taken those decisions. I think because of the strong influence of trying to do the right thing, not only for the corporation, but also for the community, for my people, employees, customer, and more importantly for the planet. I have naturally been thinking like that, and what I feel is that it has not allowed, or it has not led me to do things which have in any way contributed to reduced profits, right? And that's what I mean by compassionate capitalism. Now there is a new term, or not a new term now. It is. I think I find the concept fascinating, which is about B corporations. If you look at, I don't know if you have heard of B corporations.
No, I did not.
But B corporations, you get a certificate from B Labs, and B corporations are for-profit organizations, but they get certified through very rigorous assessments.
I see.
In terms of what they are doing for the rest of the stakeholders, right? Whether it is the community or their employees or customers. I like to give a few examples of those companies, right? So one of the ones which I am fascinated about and a big fan is Patagonia. Patagonia, as you probably know, is one of the world's biggest brand now in terms of winter and adventure and trekking kind of thing. They compete directly with North Face. And Patagonia is a fascinating example of compassionate capitalism. If you look at what their mission is to do the right thing for the planet, and everything flows from there. But that has not deterred their profits. Over the last year, they have made more than $1 billion of profits. But if you look at the way they do the business, for example, when you go to the store and you are trying to buy a new jacket, they will ask you a question: do you really need it? Now, have you ever heard of some company trying to say that do you really need their product? Because they believe in recycling. They believe that if you have bought a jacket, come and recycle or come and repair it. Why do you want another one?
Right.
So this philosophy of what they are doing, and they contribute 1% of their annual sales on the planet. This is what I call a B planet, a B corporation, right? Ben and Jerry ice cream from Unilever is another great example, right, which does this. And there are many more. In India, there are companies like E-Couture, which is another example of a B corporation. While Tata is not a certified B corporation, I think they have been doing what B corporation is trying to do now for years.
Correct.
Right? And Tata is a classic example of compassionate capitalism,
Yes.
in my view.
Yeah.
And we have seen what they have done for the society, what they continue to do while their profits have soared, right? So I am a big fan of this concept of B corporation, and the success of such organizations have shown that you don't have to be countering either this or that. A purpose driven organization like a Patagonia or Tata can be a highly profitable organization, not only in the short run, but over a long run.
Yeah.
They are much more sustainable businesses, if I may call it.
No, these are fantastic examples. Thanks for sharing those. But now that you brought in the long term into the picture, let's stick on with these corporations for a while longer. In the long run, corporations also evolve. They transform, sometimes massive transformations, sometimes minor transformations, continuous improvement, sometimes driven by macros, external macros, sometimes driven by their own internal rediscovery, reinvention. The way I look at it, or the way I try to parse some of the events going on, it's always a conflict between purpose and profit. A classic example, with my aviation background, I obviously follow Airbus and Boeing very closely, as you would imagine, along with others. whatever is happening with Boeing, we all know, right? It also comes to me, frankly, as a conflict between purpose and profit, which has different implications. When you look at this, do you recall something that has stuck with you when you're thinking of a company that either they chose purpose or they chose profit, and the balancing act that you are referring to didn't happen properly?
No, I think it's a great question. And before I answer that, I must say that the future leaders will have to do a great balancing act between the two, right? And those will be the organizations which will survive in the future. But if you look at whether organizations have done one or the other, I think there are multiple examples where organizations have chosen profits because this is the way the business world is run, right? So they have taken decisions. Even now, if you look at organizations and what is happening, at least in my industry, let's talk about my industry, and that's the IT services industry, right? There's a huge impact of AI, which is happening, and that is completely reinventing the AI IT landscape. And because of that, there are organizations which are now trying to very quickly realign themselves to the reality of AI. The reality of AI basically is that you cannot operate with hundreds and thousands of people. Now, what do you do with them? Right? You can reskill them, you can upskill them, but the question which the corporations are facing is that do they have the time to do it? Saying that some of these people cannot be reskilled, I don't buy to that decision. But yes, I can understand that do they have the time to reskill hundreds of thousands of people? And if not, then they will take some decision based on which they will say that, okay, we have to get rid of these people because they are not fitting into the new strategy or the new structure.
Or the new purpose.
Or the new purpose, right, which we are trying to do. So this is something which is happening now as we speak. As you would have seen, most of the IT services organizations have announced big layoffs of people. But what they are really trying to do is to streamline their organization and yes, make it much more AI aligned, but do it in what we call compressed timeline. Right, and compressed timeline is where you have to take decisions which may be, I would say, more aligned towards the growth and the profitability of the organization, and definitely the stock price, right? Compared to the purpose and the people, or let's say the planet. So this we see happening now, and I think AI is going to make. I think AI is going to be another big challenge as far as the profit versus purpose is concerned, and it is going to have a big influence on these decisions as we go ahead, because organizations are definitely struggling at this point of time to come up with their new identity, and I think this is a time where the balancing act will have to be done. If they really want to position themselves as the organization which people want to work for.
Yeah, and now it's nice that you brought up AI. I keep thinking about purpose and profit on AI in two ways. The rate at which new AI engines are being thrown into the market, that's more like a profit-oriented action. However, there are always these discussions about ethical AI, compliance in AI. Those seem to be some purpose, right? And you just see how even in a short time scale, we are seeing this conflict between purpose and profit on the same agenda called AI, right? We will possibly have an opportunity of talking about AI once again, but I just have two questions for you as a reactionary questions. There are many trending purposes in corporations and business schools. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it, right? We keep hearing about this purpose, hashtag purpose, if I may use that. Is there one such purpose trend in business that has caught your attention and you think it's just a hype or a PR and it really doesn't serve any purpose?
I think there are quite a few of them, but let me see. If I have to choose one of them, I think it would be mental wellness, right? Not that. Let me just clarify that. I think as having personally struggled with the mental wellness over the last 30 years, I can empathize with it more than other people. But what I see in corporations is that they have these different initiatives which they are introducing to say that okay, we want to make sure that our employees get access to the best mental health resources, right? Whether it is an app or whether it is counseling or whether it is other things. And I think that's a great thing. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. Where I struggle is that I think you need to find out why they are in such a position in the first place. Why have they got burnt out, right? That you have to go through these programs with them. And that is where I am not able to fully understand that should we look at the symptom, which is the mental wellness, which you are trying to solve through a number of things which you are doing for your employees, or try to go to the root cause of why so many employees are falling prey to this, what I call the silent killer. Right? I think that is something which I strongly feel that we can perhaps relook at this approach of looking at mental wellness initiatives, which I would say every organization is doing now. What they are not able to get is that why has this become such rampant suddenly, right? Obviously there are things which are broken and you have to mend those things rather than start treating the symptoms, and I think that makes it a PR kind of a thing in my thinking.
No, thanks for sharing that, Avnish. I fully resonate with it personally, especially the point you said that should we spend time and effort in running initiatives to address a symptom, or should we take a step back and go to the root causes and start addressing it? It fully resonates with me. Maybe a last question around the corporations, and then we'll move to a different avatar of yours. Is there a controversial business practice that you think actually works?
Well, I think, if you look at what could be a controversial business practice which works, I would say, and I know people are going to hate me for this, it is these quarterly results, right? Everybody hates it, right? Everybody says that it's a short-term kind of thing, and that is what is driving also to the question of our podcast, profit versus purpose. The quarterly results and that you have to answer every quarter to the street, and obviously is very aligned to the profit. But when I look at it, I feel that it brings a certain rigor and structure to the organization. Like it just reminds me of the 6 a.m. PT which I used to have in the army. Nobody liked it, especially if you are having a good time till 2 or 3 in the night, which is something which the young officers used to do. But knowing that you have to be there at the PT ground at 6 a.m. brought that discipline into us, right? And made sure that the rest of the day started off very productively, and you were able to get your tasks done. That's what I feel about these quarterly results as well, that if you take that out, I think a bit of structure and rigor and discipline goes out. So I think nobody likes them. Everybody says that that leads to short-term thinking. It leads to this whole drama about showing profits, and otherwise you will get punished by the street. But I feel that they have a purpose. They have their own purpose in the corporate world, and I would still. It's a controversial thing, but I would still support it.
And I see where you're coming from. Very similar. If I can share my thoughts, a very similar one I have, which drove rigor and discipline, was the classic Jack Welch's 9-blocker performance rating.
Right.
Everyone hated it. It became unpopular with changing times. Jack was called names for it, right? But I think his 9-blocker, the purpose or the principle driving it, actually drove a very competitive organization, which was also within certain guidelines, both behaviorally as well as materialistically. So that's also another controversial one.
No, I totally agree. In fact, the opposite example which I like to give is another controversial one, which is more aligned with what the work I do is around, companies like Google, for example, giving a lot of leeway for their employees to do, out of the box thinking.
Yes, yeah.
And other things. 3M, other companies, there are quite a few companies which are doing that, right? And they have these beautiful offices, free lunches and all. And again, it's a controversial thing because it is always being attacked,
Yeah.
right? That why do you have to do this and all. I genuinely feel that it leads a lot to innovation, because to innovate, you have to get a particular kind of an environment.
Yeah.
And you have to get the support of the organization which are looking for you to do certain things as part of your job only.
Yeah.
It is not that you will be punished for doing that. And
Yes.
the biggest thing which I feel is that these organizations give you the permission to fail.
Yeah.
Right? They give you the permission to first experiment and then fail.
Correct.
And they will protect you. They give you that psychological safety to do that. So yes, while some of these practices are taken as out of the kind of a context, things which people are doing, and people say that you can't make just beautiful offices and good free lunches to get the employees into. People also say that that's the best way to make sure the employee never goes home.
Right.
And
Nice bin bags.
yeah. So that is the other way of looking at it. Say that these companies are very smart.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
provide everything, including laundry and child care and all, so that you don't have to go home.
Right.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. But I still feel that while controversial, I like what these organizations are doing, and you can see that some of the biggest innovations have come from such organizations.
Terrific. Now, this is very good discussion. We'll now move to a slightly different flavor now. Avnish, I know you are a very humble man, but for our audience's benefit, they need to know that you are a very revered and recognized startup coach across the country, right? And that's fantastic.
Thank you.
What I want to do in the next few minutes is to pick your thoughts and brain on your journey mentoring startups, identifying startups. Yeah, I know you have also been an active investor yourself, but we'll possibly stick to the stories of startups. Let's start with this. When you think of all this range of startups that you have been mentoring or coaching over, I think 10, 12, 14 years now?
Correct.
Right? That's a very, very long time, and you have done that consistently. Do you recall one or two stories where you saw that a startup chose profit over purpose, or a startup chose purpose over profit, and either of those led to a breakthrough, which would not have happened if the founders did not make a choice?
Yeah, I think, so first of all, thank you very much for mentioning about my journey in the startup world. That's the life I have led over the last decade or plus. And in that journey, I have had the opportunity to mentor and work with thousands of startups. Yes, a particular kind of startups we work with, which are more deep tech and deep science aligned. So yeah, just to set the context, I work with more such startups, but yes, I have worked with a few others which are more in the sustainability, climate, and what we call tech for good as well. So to answer your question, I have seen both kind of startups. One which have taken a very hard-nosed kind of a decision, where they started off with very noble thoughts in terms of, for example, they wanted to do something for financial inclusion for farmers, right? And they wanted to build a sustainable, profitable business around that. But as they continued their journey, they found out that it was not as easy as they thought, and obviously the real world is not as it is a pretty harsh world. So they pivoted to a model which I think, and this especially happened during the COVID. Right? COVID obviously brought very different kind of challenges for a lot of my startups and every other startup as well. So before COVID, I think there was a world where startups, especially the ones which were in this space, were looking for balancing the two things. But as COVID happened, I think, and I also mentored them, that you can only do well, or you can do things which are aligned to purpose if you survive this period.
Yeah, that's right.
And a significant number of startups did not survive. In fact, so as a mentor, I advised, and I can't even believe that I did it, but I advised many of my startups. That time I didn't know whether I was doing the right thing or wrong. but I advise them to do things which would make sure that they exist after the crisis. And during that time of 1.5 years, I would say that the purpose and all the good things which we have been talking about definitely took a back seat. But now when I see one that they have survived, which is fantastic because not many did, and because they have come out of that, I see that they have doubled their passion for the purpose
Wow.
which they had started with, because they can understand that they let go of it, but now it is reinforced by their continued success.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that some of that success is now shared and distributed. So I have seen organizations go from one side, which is the purpose, then confronted with a crisis, go to the other side, and then again retracing their steps back to say that, guys, we are one of the few lucky ones who survived. So we have to now go back to our mission in terms of why we started this in the first place, right? So I think that has happened quite a lot, and I've been myself part of those decisions. I have also seen the other side of the picture, where companies have been more profit oriented, and they have over time realized that if they are trying to build social currency, if they're trying to build sustainable business, it is the profit will not be the only thing which will help them go ahead. And because of that, I have seen they trade off a lot of their growth and valuation to become a much more compassionate organization. And that has also happened, although examples of this are a few compared to the other one. But I have seen both kind of organizations. I have been fortunate enough to see that. But I have also seen startups growing very quickly on valuation, and the startup founders growing their ego as quickly. And I have seen them get completely derailed. Right, and both the profit and purpose have been lost by that kind of an act. And I think Indian startup ecosystem has a lot of such examples where both these criteria were sidelined, and those organizations or startups don't exist now. And obviously the investors have lost a lot of money, but also the employees have lost significant opportunities. So I think the startups world is obviously a different world, very different world. Startup, I always feel, is a very fragile organization. So you cannot compare that with one of the big corporations which you and me, belong to. For us, 2, 3, 4 quarters, doesn't make too much of a difference. We always have the capacity to come back. But for a startup, it's an everyday kind of an affair. And that's my love for the startups as well. I think what they are doing is a very tough job. It takes a lot of courage. I have been mentoring thousands of startups, and everybody, when they ask me that why haven't you started your own startup, I get to know that I am a great as a mentor, but I may not be able to do some of the things which these startup founders are doing. I have a lot of humility, and I have a lot of respect for these people, what they do. And I think their decisions in terms of profit versus purpose are slightly different to what a corporate can do, right? Which is what I have tried to explain. Because sometimes these decisions can mean the difference between life and death.
Exactly.
For a startup. For a corporate, it is not that dramatic. Right? You can do 1 quarter something, and then you can come back and do that thing. That is why I said that, if in the COVID, you didn't make decisions which would make sure that you are cutting cost, you are going to survive, and then you come back, you won't have existed. So I think it is the impact of these questions on startups is much more profound than what is on corporate.
Absolutely, and as you said, I think for corporations it's more about thriving where these choices lead to, whereas for startups, as you rightly said, and COVID is a classic example, a magnified example in time scale of survival. Thriving comes much later, right? In fact, you answered another question I already had, which comes first, purpose before profit or profit before purpose. So you have very well answered that. Let me ask you another follow-up question. You actually touched on a topic that's very close to my heart. It's a puzzle, I must say. India obviously has a lot of startups, one of the highest number around the world.
Yes.
Now you and I know it, our audience knows it, we can explain why so. The total number of unicorn conversion isn't as high compared to some other regions in the world. Bay Area or Silicon Valley in the West Coast being one of those areas which I talked about, but there are others. Why do you think the conversion rate is so low in India?
The conversion rate of startups into unicorns.
Into unicorns. Yeah.
Actually, I have a very controversial response to that.
Okay.
I feel it is too high. Because again the COVID showed. During the COVID time, I remember every 2 weeks there used to be a unicorn. I have seen that rate as well. Because after the COVID, there was a significant surge of technology.
Yes.
And so many startups became unicorns. Every 2 weeks we used to get an announcement. But the point was that none of them or a lot of them did not have what it takes to become a unicorn, right? And now you see we were about a number of about 125, 130 at one point of time. Today, nobody really knows exactly the number, but I would say they are below 100.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah.
So what happened was that they did not have a sustainable business model, right? I always say that a feature is not a product. A product is not a startup is not a business, and a business is not a unicorn.
Yeah.
So a lot of these companies could not sustain after the surge which they saw after COVID and have now gone and lost their valuation. I feel that chasing valuation, because becoming a unicorn is a valuation game, right? You become a $1 billion company, and that's what makes you or gives you the title of unicorn. I think organizations and startups need to focus on value which they are creating, and over time these are the organizations which will not only become unicorns but decacorns as well. So this fascination of India and Indians
Correct.
on this number of unicorns
Yeah.
is something which amuses me.
Yeah.
But if you look at, also from a global perspective, we are still the third largest in unicorns as well. So it is not that we are far lagging behind. It's, I think, only US and China which is ahead of us. But are we producing startups or unicorns of the quality of especially US? Perhaps not. I actually like the term cockroaches much better, because if you know that the cockroaches are the only animals which can survive
That's right.
an atomic
Yeah.
explosion as well, and a startup which has a cockroach kind of a DNA or mentality, maybe no frills, no PR, nothing, but they have what it takes to get out of crises. Those are the startups which I like. So I prefer the cockroaches over the unicorns. I think we have enough unicorns. The conversion rate I am not really bothered about. What we need to make sure is that instead of valuation, we are genuinely into the value creation process. And if you do that, the outcomes of unicorns, decacorns, good IPOs, good exits, they are all going to happen if you do that.
Definitely comes back time and again to your fundamental belief in purpose in one way or the other. So, Avnish, let me ask you one more question before I change the flavor of our discussion.
Yeah.
About a decade and a half back, if you recall, there was a flavor of the season, Jugaad, right? And how Jugaad is the next innovation engine. Jugaad is innovation. Then there's a different school of thought that Jugaad is Jugaad, it's not innovation. And we all have our own opinions. I wanted to hear from you. If you now, today morning, were to look at Jugaad with the lenses of profit, purpose, survival, thriving, how does Jugaad feel this morning?
Yeah, I think Jugaad definitely has played a key role as far as the India's innovation story goes, right? It is part of the DNA. And see, every country, if you look at it from, I like to answer this question at a little broader context, right? In terms of why countries innovate and why does that particular innovation model become part of their DNA, right? So if you look at few countries, let's look at US. US obviously the number one, in terms of innovation. and their main driver for innovation is profit making. And that is why you see some of the biggest corporations or the startups all have come from US, because they encourage capitalism. And they're not ashamed of it. That's their philosophy, and that's why you see all these mega companies, which come out of that. So their philosophy of innovation is, can we actually make profits? On the other hand, you look at countries, for example, like Switzerland, rated as the #1 innovation country for decades now, right? What is their philosophy of innovation? Switzerland's philosophy of innovation is quality. They want to be made in Switzerland, that brand, whether it's a watch or the chocolate or cheese or anything else, instruments, they are the world's best quality. So that is driving their philosophy. Similarly, you look at Nordics. Nordics is all about the planet.
That's right.
Right. So their innovation is fueled through doing the right thing as far as people and profit or planet is concerned. Now you look at India. What is India's main driver of innovation? And that's where Jugaad comes in. India's main driver of innovation is resource scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
We have always been scarce in terms of resources, being a developing country for long. And that is what has gone imprinted into the way we innovate, and what has driven to the concept of Jugaad. That you do just enough to get things done and move on. I think for a long time, during the way, when India was growing after the independence and all, this philosophy has been good, and it has served India well. Another concept, slightly different concept of Jugaad, is what we call frugal innovation.
Yeah.
Right? And I think frugal innovation takes this one step ahead. That not just Jugaad, but you're doing frugal innovation. I think the best example of frugal innovation is what we do in ISRO, and all the great work we have done in the space, right? And the kind of cost we have been able to do stuff, is less than how much you need to produce a Hollywood movie.
That's right.
That's a classic case of frugal innovation. So from Jugaad, which is like a band-aid, you go to frugal innovation, where yes, you are maybe doing 80-90% of the things, but at 50% of the price. What I am fascinated about is the third concept, which is less talked about, but I quite like it. It is called affordable excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And affordable excellence means that you are still providing excellence,
Yes.
but at an affordable price. And that is where India should be positioned, because it's such a big country. We need to make sure that affordability is there. But what has happened, and Nano is a great example of that they took affordability ahead, then excellence.
Yes.
Right? Had they changed it,
Yes.
and said that we're going to provide you a best in class car, which middle class people will be able to afford, that would have been a different story. But they always got on with that $1,000 kind of a thing. And then obviously people were thinking, well, what compromises they have made in the car, whether it's safety, this, that, and all. So my philosophy or my thinking is that Jugaad had its role. I don't think it is something which is going to continue over time, as India also transitions from to basically a product based country, right? We are in that transition at the moment. India is trying to make a mark in terms of making global products. We have not been able to do that. And one of the big reasons is this history and legacy of Jugaad.
Yeah.
Because if you are only trying to do things very short term and not making those long term investments, our GDP in innovation, or research is about 0.8% of our GDP, right?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are not going to help us make world-class products from India. So I think everything has their place in the history of a country. Jugaad very much played its role when we were coming out of a very lean phase. We were just free, and a lot of things were there, but the resources were not there.
Yeah.
And that just shows the ingenuity of Indian entrepreneurs, right? I have full respect of that some of our entrepreneurs knew that, and then that's why they went towards Jugaad. If you want to be seriously taken now, especially in the new areas which are happening, whether they are relating to world-class products or world-class tech in AI or quantum. I think we have to distance ourselves from the jugaad mentality.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic reflection, and let me just stick on with affordable excellence. Maybe Avnish, we should have another episode between you and I where we talk about affordability versus excellence. But the example you cited is very interesting. On one end, you cited Tata Nano. On the other end, you could almost think of Tesla, right? And then somewhere in between, we could bring in the obvious guest, which is Toyota, and then talk about purpose and profit, how Toyota deals with it.
Yeah, in fact, nowadays, if you look at, if you look at, let's say, EVs, I would actually put BYD,
Yes.
There.
Yes.
Which is a classic case of affordable excellence, right? They have a very, very good car.
Yeah.
All the features,
Yes.
everything you've
Very
done,
comfortable.
very comfortable,
Yeah.
right? But it is affordable.
Yeah.
It is good for the planet. I think it's a great example coming out of China, which I quite admire. BYD is completely disrupting
Yes.
the Tesla model.
Yes.
Right. So giving that kind of quality, but at a more affordable price, is what I call affordable excellence, and BYD is a great example of that.
Exactly. And maybe we should come back on this topic at some point, affordability versus excellence. Is there a common piece of wisdom in leadership or entrepreneurship that you think is flat out wrong? I'm sure there are many. We may start pouring out a dozen each of us. But share for our audience, especially the younger ones, as they migrate. Gen Z, I'll talk about Gen Z in a moment, but
Yeah.
as they migrate through this wonderful world we are leaving behind for them, some common wisdom that's flat out wrong, yet treated as wisdom.
Yeah, I think if you look at from a leadership perspective, leadership, I find that a lot of Gen Z, a lot of the new generation thinks that it has a lot to do with charisma, right? How charismatic the leader is. But if you look at some of the top performing companies, globally, and as well as in India, but I would say more globally, you will find that a lot of these CEOs have never been heard or seen,
Yeah.
right? And but that doesn't make them less of a leader.
Yeah.
So I think this fallacy of always saying that, like let's say Elon Musk, right? It all in the face kind of a
Yeah.
leader, or you had the same with Apple,
Yeah.
right? All these are on the face kind of charismatic, legendary leaders.
Always present.
Always present. And similarly, you see such leaders in the startups world as well, who hog most of the limelight.
Right.
But there are a lot of leaders, both in the corporate and in startups, also in the government, who are going about doing their job as a leader much better than anybody else. Right? So I think this is one of the things which we should try and disconnect, that if you are not charismatic or not seen on social media, means that you are not a good leader. I think that is something which I feel is not the right thing.
It again takes us back to how much bandwidth we can save to actually focus on the purpose, where I think you and I resonate.
That is correct. Absolutely correct.
Exactly. Terrific discussion so far. Let me now change the flavor a little bit again. And this time, I want to pick up a little bit of learnings from stories, mythologies, history, however is comfortable for you to reflect back on. And this is important, Avnish, right? Because we as humans love stories. We like to tell stories, we like to hear stories, we like to reflect on stories. There are a lot of warnings in history, a lot of warnings in mythologies. Let's think of characters like King Midas or Duryodhan in Mahabharata, or Icarus when he was trying to fly, right? Or even Kaikeyi in Ramayana. Right? There are a lot of these warnings where ambitions, aka profit, took them down a path of almost destruction. Do you recall any such character from any of the mythologies, Indian or otherwise, that you resonate with when you swing between thinking of purpose-driven life versus profit-driven outcomes? Tell us a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's a very interesting question, because as you rightly said, everything is woven in stories,
Yeah.
and especially in our culture. and some of these characters you mentioned are obviously part of our folklore. So if you look at few characters which come from Mahabharata, you alluded to
Yes.
a few of them, and I will talk about both of them, right? If you look at the war in Mahabharata, Kurukshetra war, it was basically decided between the war was decided between a battle of two individuals, which was Karna and Arjun.
Yes.
Right. Rest was great, but it is this battle which I think is the key one which happened, and I find this battle and the characters very fascinating, both of them.
Yeah.
Karna, if you look at his purpose in life was loyalty towards his friend, and he always stuck to his purpose. He was never connected to the prophet. Arjun, on the other hand, was fighting to get the kingdom back, which I think cleverly Lord Krishna told him is his dharma. Right? He has to go and do what he wants. But ultimately, it was the battle started because the kingdom of Hastinapur was not returned to the Pandavas. I somehow connected to the prophet, right? That you are fighting for your, and yeah, it's a legitimate thing. But you have Karna, on the other hand, had no such ambitions. His only ambition was to protect his loyalty towards his over his friend, right? So I find these two characters, one which seems to be fighting on the side of dharma and with Lord Krishna as his friend,
Correct.
but ultimately for a piece of land.
Correct.
And on the other hand, there is a gentleman who's fighting on the other side of dharma, and that is why he died, people say. But he has a very clear purpose, that his purpose of life is loyalty towards his friend.
Yes.
So I think these stories are fascinating story of two characters which shape the conclusion
Yes.
of this war. But here, if you look at them, the definition of dharma, of profit and purpose,
Yes.
suddenly gets very
Exactly.
Very
Very grey.
very great.
Yeah.
Which is profit and which is purpose, and who was fighting on whose side?
Exactly. Exactly. As I was listening to you, and I'm sure the audience would enjoy reflecting on this in their own ways. You said it right, and maybe this is why all the mythologies are very unique, that they quickly take you into a gray zone, which is also what our podcast channel is about, dichotomies and dilemmas in life, right? Because the other thing, Avnish, possibly coming out from this reflection is maybe our mind is trained to think in a certain way, that profit is always connected to something tangible, something materialistic, whereas purpose is always connected to something that is abstract, a higher state of being. And I'm not trying to take a side right now. I wanted to tease that one out because our audience may find it fascinating to reflect on this one. But thanks for sharing that example and that perspective of Kurukshetra war.
Yeah, I think just to add another incident which I find,
Yes.
I find this very, very fascinating, obviously our history. But again, going back, you were talking about ambition, right? And
Yes.
and you were connecting that with the startups as well. And I was talking about the humility and the arrogance. Arjun obviously was very happy when he won the battle against Karna, and there is a particular incident which happens between the two, where when Arjun shoots the arrows towards Karna, his rath
Right.
goes about 10-20 steps behind, and when Karna shoots the arrows towards Arjun, his rath obviously goes only 1 or 2 steps behind. So he gets very excited, but Krishna is always praising Karna and saying, see what great work he is doing.
Yes.
So this guy gets agitated,
Correct.
Arjun, and he says that you are supposed to be on my side. You see the impact of my arrows,
Yeah.
and you see the impact of his arrows. You are still saying that he's the better one. So Lord Krishna gives that illusion. He used to do that when he used to stop everything and show Arjun what he wanted, and then he shows that as soon as it comes down from the chariot, the complete chariot breaks.
Yeah.
So what he tells Arjun is that, see, the reason you are still there here is because I am standing there.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, you were finished
Yeah.
much earlier by Karna. And you have me on the top. You have Lord Hanuman.
Right.
All these people are there, and he can still move you.
Correct.
2 steps back.
Yes.
Imagine the caliber of this person
Yes.
to what you have done.
Yes.
I think it's a very great story
Yeah.
about humility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Arjun thought that he's the best in everything, but Lord Krishna also put him in his place.
Yes.
And said that this conclusion of your war and the war of Kurukshetra would not have been the way it should have been.
Yeah.
Krishna was not there.
Yeah, it connects back to your point few minutes back, which is about on the face, charisma,
Yes.
driving purpose, right? Yet keeping the machinery moving, right? I can think of this guy Jensen from NVIDIA, right? I mean, he was never on the face, quite frankly, and NVIDIA became NVIDIA. It's only now that he's trying to put forth few of his opinions, maybe for a range of reasons.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent example.
Yeah.
I think he is one of the most understated
Exactly.
kind of a leader. You are right. Lately, he has been trying to do something, but he has never been like some of the other leaders. And look at where NVIDIA is.
It's creating its own history, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you, Avnish, if you recall an incident, possibly from amongst your peers, obviously we'll not name any of them, where you observed them from a distance and you saw that their chasing purpose or their chasing profit became self-defeating.
I think rather than pointing out to my colleagues, I can point out to myself.
Sure.
Because I have always said that I have chased purpose. And the chasing of purpose sometimes makes you again proud, right? It makes you idealistic. You feel that you are bigger than some of the other people who are just going there and chasing their numbers, doing
Yeah.
their sales, and you are much above that kind of thing. I think that mentality has hurt me quite a lot during my career. Probably lost me 2-3 promotions as well. And I also feel that when people are, for example, doing sales or people are doing networking to
Yeah.
do sales, I now realize that these are specialized skills. They are not things which are beneath your dignity.
Yeah.
You consider them beneath your dignity because you don't do them. You can't do them. You never bother to put your effort in learning those skills.
Yeah.
And you have taken yourself to a higher thing and saying, these kind of things are not what I would like to do. So I think my own example of evolving as a professional and as a human being is that the things which I used to look down upon and the people I used to look down upon because they were carrying out certain tasks which I feel or felt was not what I would ever do.
Yeah.
They were first of all doing what their job was. Secondly, they were difficult skills. And thirdly, they spent time learning those skills. You didn't do it. And now you hide behind that thing that, I'm not the networking person. I'm not going to go and, kiss somebody's, whatever.
Yeah.
I think these are things where you have to again understand that the purpose, the chasing of purpose should not make you arrogant. It cannot make you an idealist.
Yeah.
Where you expect things to happen in a certain way because the world doesn't move around that. So yeah, I have learned it in my own experience that you have to have a fine balancing act. And this is what I said, it's like a tight rope. Passion versus purpose
Yes.
is a tight rope which every leader has to balance every day. And I think the persons or the leaders who will be able to do that best will have the highest chance of surviving and thriving in the new world.
Indeed, indeed. So this whole act of humility or self-calibration instead of quickly jumping into excuses and drawing yourself this ensconced world.
Yeah,
right?
you always think you have a halo,
right, a halo around yourself.
Yeah, but I think things
Yeah.
are again very grey. It's
Exactly.
all a grey world, which even purpose and
It is,
profit.
yes.
A lot of it is grey area.
Yeah.
You really have to look at from which lens
Yeah.
are you looking at these things.
It reminds me of a self-reflection. I grew up as an R&D person. I had this idealist world around myself, right? The ivory tower, the haloed R&D. And I also lost out on a few promotions or moves because I decided some of those things else were beneath my dignity
Yeah.
or capability. The day I moved on to exploring the other side, I just had this realization that for every piece that you work on, there is a purpose, there is a profit. It's just that you need to find that out and you need to stick to it. Which, by the way, comes back to your point. It requires you to break down your own arrogance, break down your own whatever, right? Become more humble, calibrate yourself.
I think excess of any of these two
Yes.
is not right.
Yeah.
There has to be a balancing act.
Yes.
And as long as the two are not acting counterproductively and they are reinforcing each other, I think that is the ideal state which we should go for. Rather than say one is good and the
Yes.
other is not. I don't think any of them is good or bad. They have their own, because as I said in the beginning, that purpose you can chase only. Let's look at my role today, right? You talked about me, I have mentored a lot of startups. I have
Yeah.
taken them from few 100K revenues to become 40-50 million dollars revenues. I've taken them global. But all this was allowed because my organization was doing well.
Mhm.
And these people who are doing sales and delivery and solutioning every day are the people who are generating
Exactly.
that money for Accenture to allow me to
Yeah.
make such a big impact to the startup world.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying, that right, my purpose is to make sure that not only the startups but we position India as a deep tech hub globally. But what allows me to do that, what allows me to make that impact
Yeah.
is the regular
Yes.
bread and butter and the
Yes.
hard grind
Yes.
which a lot of my peers are going through to do that. So I never forget that.
Yes.
I never forget that what allows me in an organization like Accenture to make this impact.
Yeah. I'll try to draw an analogy. Listening to you is inspiring, Avnish. I'll draw an analogy. May not be the best, but I'll do it nonetheless. When we came out of the caves, the primary purpose or primary action we had was that of hunter or gatherer. You needed to get food on the table, metaphorical
Yes.
table, right? It's much later that we thought it is very romantic to build pyramids or romantic to build a Colosseum or a Taj Mahal or whatever, right? It started with getting the food on the table, metaphorically. So it goes back, what you just said, it goes back to the discussion about survival first, and then you have all this thriving, resetting, reinvention, rediscovery. And we should not forget that. It's almost a chain reaction that goes on.
Well, it's the classic Maslow's
Maslow's pyramid, yes.
pyramid, right? That you want to go into self actualization
Yes.
or realization, but
Realization.
you cannot do that till the bottom of the
Yeah.
pyramid, which are a lot hygiene
Exactly.
related stuff
Yeah.
are in place,
Yeah.
right? So I think no
Yeah.
better than that example to
Exactly.
give. Yeah.
Exactly. The only tension we live in right now is that the bottom of the pyramid is gradually going up, right? So luxury goods are now becoming common goods, and we don't know where it stops. Maybe your compassionate capitalism will play a role in reversing that or slowing it down a little bit. Teaser question for you. If tomorrow you have come to a crossroad trying to save your own reputation as an individual, Avnish, versus trying to save a company's bottom line, which one would you pick spontaneously?
Well, I think there's nothing to choose here. It is always the reputation. The bottom line of an organization can always be corrected, and there will be many opportunities you do that. Reputation is built over years and years, right? And one wrong act can spoil it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think this is a no-brainer. Probably the easiest question you have asked me across the entire interview. Reputation, definitely, it will be. I won't even think twice on that. And I think that ties up to what I really value a lot, which is integrity.
Mhm.
Right? Integrity has been a part of my DNA. It got reinforced in the army, but it is still what I am known for. If you look at what I am known for in my circles, it is integrity, right? That you go there, he will do always the right thing. He may not be the most polite and humble person, but he will always have a high degree of integrity. So I think reputation and integrity for me are intertwined. My reputation is based on my integrity, which I have shown. And I think integrity cannot be 70% or 90% or 10%.
Yeah.
it's either there
Yes.
or it is not.
Yeah,
there.
it's like you can't be half pregnant.
That's
right.
So yeah, I think and that is my legacy. At the far end of my career now, I cannot take decisions which will go against what I have stood for. So yeah, that's the kind of legacy I would like to be remembered. That I did the right things and never had conflicts in my mind in terms of what is right and what is wrong. I think my team also says that Avnish is accused of a lot of things, but ambiguity is not one of them.
And I know you for a while. I can vouch for that.
I think I am crystal clear of which side is right, which is wrong.
Yes.
And I generally try to be on the right side. And yes, to be on the right side, you have to be ready to pay the penalty, right? And that has been part of my life and career. But it is what it is. I think everybody has to make choices, and every choice has an implication.
Yes, there's no free lunch. You have to pay for it, right? I mean, you have to take a stand. We did not touch a lot deeper about Gen Z and millennials today, and that's because how the conversation went, which was fantastic. But if I were to ask you for an advice for our Gen Z or millennials to reflect on, there's this tussle. And let me summarize that tussle as a tussle between profit obsession versus purpose washing, like greenwashing. What would be your advice to Gen Z and millennials as they migrate in this world of contradictions?
Yeah, very interesting question. And if I look at it question in a way that, let's suppose you have to choose between one of them, right? Purpose washing and profit chasing. I would say you do profit chasing because at least you are true to yourself.
Yes.
You are saying that you are in this game, and look at all the US companies, right?
Correct.
And that's the example I gave, that yes, you are in the game, you are innovating, you are in the game for making profits, and you are not fooling anybody.
Right.
But when you are doing this greenwashing or purpose washing, there you are trying to do double standards there, right? You are trying to say that I am doing the right thing, but actually you are not. I think that is a much more dangerous thing to do. So my advice to the new generation would be that don't do that, right? If you believe in something, do it. Otherwise, it's fine to believe in money and profits. There is nothing wrong in that.
Yeah.
But the other one is a dangerous game where you are actually doing something else and saying something else. And greenwashing comes to my mind.
Yeah.
If you look at this favorite thing of net carbon neutrality by 2030, right? Everybody make those lofty statements. But I think sustainability is not a metric; it is a commitment, right? Which is what we are forgetting. And things like carbon trading and all, these are all things which are just muddling up the whole thing. So I'm not a big fan of doing all these things. Rather, I will then make money if I had to choose between the two.
Be straight in your claims and in your actions. And I think that there's enough examples in history also in the corporate world where if your investors understood who you are, you did well as a company, right? And then of course there's a fundamental belief that you would have a purpose, and clarity on that purpose is also important, but not having the double standard is very important. Or perceived double standard. I recall situations of niche where it was possibly not a double standard but a perceived double standard, which is equally damaging.
Correct.
Right. Terrific. We are coming almost to the close of our conversation today. Shashin has been chasing me to have a rapid fire round. So I'm going to try you. You are the guinea pig. This is my first attempt at a rapid fire.
Okay.
But let's not make it as rapid. We'll respect our wisdom. We'll respect where we are in life. If you want to elaborate on any of those, please do it. It'll be fun to listen to you, and I'm pretty sure our audience would enjoy it. But I'll give you choices, right? Purpose or profit?
Purpose.
Legacy impact or quarterly results?
Legacy impact. I think purpose and legacy impact, I've talked about you during the interviews, both of them. So yes, I'm definitely, because of my background, I'm more inclined towards these.
Terrific. Startup hustle or corporate ladder?
That's a tough one. I would say that startup hustle in a corporate, which is what I have been doing. But I have enjoyed every moment of it. The hustle of a startup
Yeah.
is just mind-boggling, and it just creates so much of excitement and so much of curiosity every day that I just love it. So hustling for me is very important, and I do hustling in corporate as well, just like a startup would do.
Right, right. And you are living behind a lot of legacy. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you are really well revered in the startup world in India, largely because of the impact, right? Being a mentor or being a maverick?
Being a maverick.
Say more.
Definitely a maverick. My team says that sometimes Avnish himself doesn't know how he will react. So how will he come to know what he's going to do, right?
Tough for them.
Tough one. So yes, I've always been a maverick, and I actually feel, I'm not talking about myself, but I feel that mavericks play a very important role in a corporate or wherever, right? And I think organizations should have a few hanging around. I'm not saying everybody becomes a maverick, then the organization will obviously go down the hill. But the tolerance level of having mavericks and trying to do things which are what I call moonshots, right, or big, hairy, audacious goals, things which 99% of time may fail, but if they happen once, they will take you to a different orbit. That's a maverick job, right? So I have mentored, and I am probably liked for mentoring both in the startup world and also in Accenture or IBM, and in the army as well, which are the three organizations I have been. But I am very proud to be leaving a legacy of a maverick. Somebody who tried to push the boundaries and never took status quo as given, challenged every rule and norm which was thrown there, never took approvals of anything. That's what has defined my personality.
Yeah. Mission first or market first?
Actually, I would say mission first, people always.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the motto of me when I was in the army. So in the army, it is taught that the most important thing is the mission. After that comes everything, and I still believe in that. That once you are given a mission in the army or your objectives in the corporate or whatever, I think you have to make sure that you get that done. Market, no market, environment, all these things are there which will keep on changing. But you have to be ultra focused. It's like Arjuna seeing the eye of the bird. Right? You can never move your eyes in terms of what your objective or mission is. So always mission first, but people always. You have to do it's like you are going through the AI transformation. Yes, there is no doubt that your mission is to become the best AI company in the world. But you have to take your people with you. In the end, what is an organization? Organization is the people they have, right? So yes, you have to become an AI organization, but yes, you have to take the people with you as well.
Of course. I think I can guess this, but let me still ask. Creative risk versus disciplined execution? Or are there specific times when you would choose one?
I think both of them have their own place. Right? Discipline comes naturally to me, and I have enforced that during my corporate life. But I have taken many creative liberties as well. So I think I am pretty much comfortable with both these areas, and there are different times and different contexts in which one is predominant over the other. So in this case, I would say that both are important. It is the context and it is the timing in which you are looking at.
When you look at your decision making, you go with intuition or do you love analysis?
Again, if you look at when you have the luxury of time and you have the luxury of data, then I will go more analytical, right? Because I would like to then validate my thinking based on the facts which I can get, either they are available or I have the time to get them. When I don't have that, I am not a leader who will sit on a decision. Then I will use what I call judgment, right? And then I will go with my judgment rather than not doing anything. So I think that's how I will look at, given an opportunity, yes, why not? I will validate. If I don't have it, I will still take a decision and be held accountable for that decision. I'm not going to wait for all the data to come in, get the PowerPoints and Excels done, and then do it. No, I will not do that.
Yeah, oh, how boring. If I were to talk to your teams, the current team or maybe teams from the past, and talk about you, how you approach them, would they say you approach them with a story, or do you approach them with data?
I think they will tell you that Avnish is probably the most dramatic storyteller. I hardly use data with my team. I don't think data, makes your team do what a great story can do. And all these stories are generally from my own life.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are stories which I tell them are about my failure, why I failed and what they should not do. Right. So I am a storyteller. I always have stories for my team, mostly from my own experience or with things I have seen. And I tell them because I want them that they should learn from my own experiences and they should not do what I have done. So definitely a storyteller. I think also every leader in some way or the other has to be a storyteller. I also feel that the startup founders lack this skill significantly, right? They go straight into their product and technology.
Yes.
But they are not able to make a good story. And in the end, nobody buys data. They buy a good story.
Yes.
Right? So yes, I am a storyteller. I'm pretty proud of that.
Maybe the last one for you. People over process or process over people? And this is going to be a classic Avnish question, right? Given your personality.
Yeah, there's nothing, again, very simple questions. People always, as I've said, processes are there and they play a part.
Yeah.
But I, right from my army days till today, my only passion in life has been to build high performing teams. That is my one passion, and that's what I'm good at. I don't have any other great skill, to be honest. So if I have only that passion, then for me it's my people only, right? I like to build high performing teams. I like to give abilities to my team members to do things which they never thought they could do, right? And those are the things which excite me and still make me get up in the morning and do stuff which I'm doing. Processes are there, they are fine, but they are not for me.
Yeah. Avnish, it's been terrific to have you in this conversation today. Grateful to have your time and have you as a friend. It's an honor. If I reflect back on our conversation today, time and again what came up is it is a balance dependent on space and time. But it is this chain reaction of survival, thriving, and reinvention, right, in a highly volatile external world. But thank you very much, and I really look forward to another episode sometime on some other connected topic.
Thank you very much, Abhijit. I really enjoyed my conversation with you, and yes, it's a fascinating topic and will become more and more relevant as we get into the AI age.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.